The 1966 United States quarter dollar, often simply called the Washington quarter, represents an important period in the nation's coinage history, one marked by both continuity of design and a fundamental shift in metallic composition due to the rising cost of silver. The obverse, or front side, of the coin bears the portrait of George Washington, the first president of the United States, facing left. This image was first introduced in 1932 to commemorate the bicentennial of Washington's birth and was designed by John Flanagan, a sculptor whose work was chosen through a design competition organized by the U.S. Treasury. Around Washington's portrait, the inscriptions read Liberty at the top, In God We Trust, to the left of his neck, and the date, 1966, below. These inscriptions are symbolic. Liberty reflects the foundational American principle of freedom, while In God We Trust is the national motto, emphasizing the country's spiritual heritage and its reliance on divine providence. The motto had appeared on U.S. coins since the Civil War era, but became a permanent feature on all coinage by law in the 1950s. The reverse side of the 1966 quarter retains the classic design, also by John Flanagan, depicting a bald eagle with outstretched wings, perched on a bundle of arrows, symbolizing strength and readiness to defend the nation. Below the eagle are two olive branches, representing peace, balancing the symbolism of war and diplomacy. Above the eagle's head appears the inscription, United States of America, followed by E pluribus unum, which means out of many one. This Latin phrase expresses the unity of the states forming one nation. Beneath the eagle are the words quarter dollar, indicating the denomination of the coin, 25 cents or 1/4 of a U.S. dollar. The artistry and symbolism of the quarter's design reflect the ideals of strength, unity, liberty, and faith that have long characterized American identity. One of the most significant aspects of the 1966 Washington quarter lies in its metal composition. Prior to 1965, U.S. quarters were made of 90% silver and 10% copper, but due to a dramatic increase in the price of silver during the early 1960s, the government decided to eliminate silver from circulating dimes and quarters to reduce production costs and prevent coin hoarding. Beginning in 1965, the U.S. Mint switched to a clad composition consisting of an outer layer of 75% copper and 25% nickel, bonded to a pure copper core. This change marked the end of the silver era for most everyday coinage. The 1966 quarter therefore contains no silver. It is instead a copper-nickel-clad coin, weighing about 5.67 grams and measuring 24.3 millimeters in diameter, with a reeded edge. This modernized composition made the coin more durable and resistant to wear, allowing it to circulate longer while reducing costs. Another notable historical detail is that no mint marks appear on quarters from 1965 through 1967. Normally, coins minted in Philadelphia, Denver, or San Francisco would bear small letters, P, D, or S, identifying their mint of origin. However, during this transitional period, the U.S. Mint intentionally removed mint marks to discourage coin collectors from hoarding new issues amid the nationwide coin shortage that followed the removal of silver. Therefore, all 1966 quarters, regardless of where they were produced, appear without a mint mark, making them indistinguishable by location. Despite this, most 1966 quarters were struck at the Philadelphia and Denver mints in very high quantities. Over 821 million pieces were produced in total, ensuring their widespread circulation across the country. In terms of collectability and value, the 1966 Washington quarter is generally considered a common coin, as most were heavily circulated. In average worn condition, it typically retains only its face value of 25 cents. However, uncirculated or mint state examples, especially those with strong luster, sharp details, and minimal marks, can be worth more to collectors, sometimes a few dollars depending on condition and grading. A small number of special mint sets, SMS, were produced in 1966, since traditional proof sets were temporarily halted from 1965 to 1967. These SMS coins have a higher quality of strike and smoother surfaces than regular circulation strikes, making them more desirable to collectors. High-grade SMS quarters with cameo contrast can command significantly higher prices. From a broader historical perspective, the 1966 quarter reflects the United States' mid-20th century economic and cultural climate. The transition from silver to clad coinage represented a modernization of the nation's monetary system and adaptation to global market forces. Yet, the continuation of Washington's portrait and traditional inscriptions symbolize stability and respect for America's founding ideals during a time of social and political change. The inclusion of "In God We Trust" next top. The 1967 United States quarter dollar, commonly known as the Washington quarter, occupies a unique and transitional position in the long history of American coinage. Though on the surface it looks nearly identical to earlier quarters, this coin tells a much deeper story of change, one reflecting the evolution of the nation's economy, technology, and even its identity during the turbulent 1960s. The obverse front of the 1967 quarter features the dignified profile of George Washington, the first president of the United States, facing left. This portrait was originally created by sculptor John Flanagan in 1932 to commemorate the 200th anniversary of Washington's birth. The design was selected through a competition organized by the U.S. Commission of Fine Arts and has since become one of the most enduring symbols in American coinage. Above Washington's head appears the word "Liberty," a bold reminder of the core American value upon which the nation was founded. To the left of his neck appears the national motto, "In God We Trust," a declaration of faith and unity that had become a permanent fixture on all U.S. coinage by the mid-20th century. Beneath Washington's bust, centered at the bottom of the obverse, is the year of mintage, 1967. Together, these inscriptions represent the intertwined ideals of liberty, faith, and nationhood that the United States sought to uphold during one of its most socially transformative decades. The reverse side of the 1967 quarter continues with John Flanagan's classic eagle design, which had been used since 1932. The image depicts a bald eagle, wings spread majestically, standing on a bundle of arrows, a symbol of military readiness and national defense, while beneath it rests an olive branch, representing peace. This pairing of the arrows and olive branch embodies the duality of the American spirit, a commitment to peace but also the willingness to defend freedom when necessary. Above the eagle's head, in a semicircular pattern, are the words, "United States of America," the proud identification of the nation of issue. Just below this inscription appears the Latin motto, "E pluribus unum," meaning "out of many one," a phrase that honors the unity of the states and the diversity of the people who together form the American Republic. At the bottom of the reverse is the denomination quarter dollar, identifying the coin's value as 1/4 of a US dollar, or 25 cents. The overall artistry of the coin is classical and balanced, a visual harmony that has allowed the Washington quarter design to endure for decades without losing its symbolic power. Perhaps the most historically significant characteristic of the 1967 quarter lies not in its design, but in its composition and production context. Before 1965, all U.S. dimes, quarters, and half dollars were minted in 90% silver and 10% copper, giving them intrinsic metal value that often exceeded their face value as silver prices rose during the early 1960s. This led to severe coin shortages as citizens began hoarding silver coins, fearing their eventual disappearance. In response, the Coinage Act of 1965 eliminated silver from circulating dimes and quarters, replacing it with a more affordable and durable clad composition, an outer layer of 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded to a pure copper core. This clad metal has a silvery appearance, but contains no actual silver. The 1967 quarter, therefore, like its 1965 and 1966 counterparts, is entirely copper-nickel clad, weighing approximately 5.67 grams and measuring 24.3 millimeters in diameter, with a reeded edge for both tactile and anti-counterfeiting purposes. This was a monumental shift in American numismatics, as it marked the permanent end of silver in everyday pocket change, a reflection of a nation adjusting to new economic realities. Another important detail that distinguishes the 1967 quarter from most other U.S. coins is the absence of any mint mark. From 1965 to 1967, the U.S. Mint deliberately omitted mint marks on all coins to discourage collectors from hoarding newly minted issues. The nation was facing a serious coin shortage at the time, caused by both public hoarding and the transition to new metal compositions. By removing mint marks, the mint made it impossible for collectors to single out coins from specific mints, such as D for Denver or S for San Francisco, ensuring that coins would stay in circulation instead of being taken out of the economy. Thus, although millions of quarters were struck in 1967 at multiple minting facilities, none bear a mint mark, making them visually identical regardless of where they were produced. Production numbers were extremely high. The Philadelphia Mint alone produced nearly 1.5 billion quarters in 1967, reflecting the mint's effort to restore a stable coin supply. During this transitional period, the U.S. Mint also changed how it created collector-quality coins. Traditional proof sets, which had been next top. The 1968 United States quarter dollar is part of the Washington Quarter series, one of the most recognized and longest-running coin designs in American numismatics. First introduced in 1932 to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth, the quarter has undergone subtle but historically significant transformations over time. The 1968 issue holds particular importance because it represents one of the early years of the post-silver era, following the Coinage Act of 1965, which permanently removed silver from most circulating U.S. coins due to rising silver prices and shortages. By 1968, the composition of the quarter had shifted to a copper-nickel clad planchet, consisting of an outer layer of 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded to a pure copper core. This change gave the coin its familiar modern appearance with a slightly different hue compared to the earlier 90% silver issues. The coin weighs approximately 5.67 grams, measures 24.3 millimeters in diameter, and has a reeded edge containing 119 reeds, a security feature that helps deter coin shaving or clipping. On the obverse front of the 1968 quarter is the enduring portrait of George Washington, sculpted by John Flanagan, based on a 1786 bust of Washington by the French sculptor Jean-Antoine Houdon. Above Washington's head is the word liberty, a hallmark of American coinage, symbolizing the nation's foundational value of freedom. Below Washington's chin appears the national motto, "In God We Trust," a phrase first added to U.S. coins during the Civil War era and formally mandated for all coins in 1955. This motto reflects the moral and religious sentiment deeply embedded in American culture and governance. At the bottom rim of the coin appears the date, 1968, indicating its year of mintage. To the right of the ribbon at Washington's ponytail, coins minted at the Denver Mint bear a small D mint mark, while those struck at the San Francisco Mint bear an S, the first time since 1964 that mint marks were again included on quarters. Coins minted in Philadelphia in 1968 carry no mint mark, following the long-standing tradition of omitting one from the main mint's output during this period. The reverse, back, of the coin features the majestic bald eagle, the national bird of the United States, also designed by John Flanagan. The eagle is depicted perched proudly upon a bundle of arrows, representing military readiness and defense of the nation, while beneath it lies an olive branch, symbolizing peace. The words United States of America arc across the top, asserting national identity, while directly below it appears the Latin phrase E pluribus unum, meaning out of many one, a tribute to the unity of the diverse states forming one nation. At the bottom of the reverse is the denomination quarter dollar, identifying the coin's face value of 25 cents. Together, the imagery and inscriptions create a strong expression of American ideals, liberty, faith, unity, peace, and strength, etched into every piece of circulating currency. In 1968, 3 facilities were involved in producing quarters: Philadelphia, no mint mark; Denver, D; and San Francisco, S. However, the San Francisco Mint primarily struck proof coins, which are special collector's editions featuring mirror-like surfaces and frosted details. The proof quarters from 1968, S were struck on specially prepared dies and sold in proof sets to collectors, not released into general circulation. The Philadelphia and Denver mints, on the other hand, produced millions of business strike coins for everyday use. In total, over 220 million quarters were struck at the Denver Mint and around 100 million at Philadelphia, making 1968 a high mintage year with no inherent rarity among circulation coins. Nonetheless, high-grade uncirculated examples and proof coins with strong cameo contrast, frosted devices, and mirror fields are prized by collectors today. The 1968 quarter's value in the numismatic market depends heavily on its mint mark, condition, and strike type. Circulated coins typically hold only face value, though those in mint state, MS, condition, graded MS 65 or higher, can command modest premiums among collectors. Proof coins, particularly deep cameo 1968 S proofs, can be worth several dollars or more depending on their preservation. Some collectors also search for errors and varieties, such as double dies, off-center strikes, or missing mint marks, though such variants from 1968 are relatively scarce. The reintroduction of mint marks in 1968 adds a layer of historical significance, as the absence of mint marks from 1965 to 1967 had frustrated collectors who relied on them to track mint origin and production differences. From a historical perspective, the 1968 quarter represents a pivotal transition point in American coinage, a reflection of both technological modernization and economic adaptation. The switch to clad composition marked the end of an era of intrinsic metal value. Next top. The 1970 United States quarter dollar is part of the famous Washington quarter series, a cornerstone of American coinage that began in 1932 to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. By 1970, this series had already become one of the most familiar coins in circulation across the country. The 1970 quarter marks an important era in U.S. coinage history, the early years of the copper-nickel clad composition that replaced silver in the mid-1960s. The change in metallic content was a response to the Coinage Act of 1965, which eliminated silver from dimes and quarters because rising silver prices had made the cost of producing coins exceed their face value. Therefore, the 1970 quarter is composed of a copper core, pure copper, bonded between two outer layers of 75% copper and 25% nickel, giving it a total composition of 91.67% copper and 8.33% nickel. The coin has a diameter of 24.3 millimeters, a thickness of 1.75 millimeters, a reeded edge with 119 grooves, and a total weight of 5.67 grams. These details establish the standard for all modern U.S. quarters that remain in use today. The obverse front of the 1970 quarter bears the enduring portrait of George Washington, designed by John Flanagan, a sculptor whose work was based on the 1786 bust of Washington created by Jean-Antoine Houdon. This image, showing Washington facing left with a calm and resolute expression, symbolizes leadership, dignity, and the birth of a nation founded on Republican ideals. Above his head appears the word liberty, one of the most powerful inscriptions in U.S. coinage, representing the core value on which the United States was founded. To the left of Washington's neck, near the truncation of the bust, is the motto, "In God We Trust," a phrase that first appeared on U.S. coins during the Civil War in 1864 and became mandatory on all coinage by 1955. Its presence on the 1970 quarter reflects the nation's enduring spiritual and moral foundation, a declaration of faith and trust in divine guidance. Beneath Washington's profile lies the date, 1970, signifying the year of minting. To the right of Washington's ponytail ribbon, just above the rim, is the small letter D, identifying that this coin was struck at the Denver Mint in Colorado, one of the primary production facilities of the U.S. Mint. The reverse back design of the 1970 quarter features the majestic bald eagle, the official national bird of the United States and a long-standing symbol of freedom and strength. The eagle, rendered by John Flanagan as well, is shown perched proudly on a bundle of arrows, signifying America's readiness to defend itself and its principles. Below the arrows lies an olive branch, representing peace. Together, the arrows and olive branch embody the balance between war and peace, strength and diplomacy. Above the eagle's head is the inscription, United States of America, boldly curved along the top rim. Just below it, in smaller letters, is the Latin motto, E pluribus unum, meaning out of many one, a timeless expression of unity among the diverse states and people that form the United States. At the bottom, completing the design, is the denomination $quarter, identifying the coin's face value of 25 cents. The combination of these inscriptions and symbols makes the Washington quarter one of the most emblematic pieces of circulating U.S. currency. In 1970, the Denver Mint produced a substantial number of quarters, approximately 417,341,364 coins, making the 1970 D issue a high-mintage circulation coin. Because of this large production run, the 1970 D quarter is relatively common and can still occasionally be found in circulation today. However, its numismatic value depends greatly on condition, errors, and strike quality. Circulated examples typically hold only face value, but uncirculated specimens, especially those graded MS-65 or higher by professional grading services, are sought after by collectors for their sharp details, luster, and historical significance. Certain varieties, such as double-die obverse or off-center strikes, can significantly increase the coin's value. The most famous and extremely rare variety related to 1970 quarters, though not specific to the Denver issue, is the 1970 S-proof quarter struck on a 1941 Canadian quarter planchet, an error that sold for thousands of dollars at auction, illustrating how even modern coins can contain hidden treasures for collectors. The 1970 D quarter belongs to an era of remarkable transition in the United States. The year 1970 marked the dawn of a new decade filled with political, cultural, and economic change, a period influenced by the Vietnam War, the space race, and growing social reform movements. The coin itself circulated widely during this era, passing through countless hands as Americans experienced the shifting tides of modern life. The Washington quarter's design, unchanged since 1932, provided a sense of next top. The 1980 United States of America quarter dollar is a coin of significant numismatic and historical interest, representing both continuity and transition within the long-running Washington quarter series that began in 1932. The obverse of the coin features the familiar and dignified left-facing portrait of George Washington, first President of the United States, modeled by sculptor John Flanagan after Jean-Antoine Houdon's celebrated 1785 bust of Washington. Above the portrait arcs the word liberty, the cornerstone ideal of the American Republic, while to the left, the national motto, In God We Trust, appears in clear, compact lettering. Beneath Washington's bust is the date, 1980, and just to the right of his ponytail lies a small but historically meaningful mint mark, the letter P, signifying that the coin was struck at the Philadelphia Mint. This P mint mark makes the 1980 issue especially notable because it was the first year in history that the Philadelphia Mint placed its identifying letter on the quarter dollar. Prior to 1980, Philadelphia coins were traditionally produced without any mint mark. This quiet but symbolic change marked a modernization in minting practices and reflected the mint's new emphasis on precision, accountability, and identification among its various facilities. The reverse side of the coin maintains the classic Washington quarter design that had become iconic across decades, an American bald eagle with wings spread wide, perched regally upon a bundle of arrows that symbolize strength and readiness to defend the nation, while beneath the arrows lie two olive branches, representing the desire for peace. Above the eagle's head is inscribed, United States of America, beneath which appears the Latin motto, E pluribus unum, meaning out of many one, a timeless reminder of the nation's unity and diversity. The denomination, quarter dollar, curves along the lower rim, completing the simple yet powerful composition that had graced the nation's coinage for nearly half a century by that point. Struck in a copper-nickel-clad composition, an outer layer of 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded to a pure copper core, The coin displays the characteristic pale silvery surface, with a reddish copper edge visible when viewed from the side. The standard weight of the coin is 5.67 grams, its diameter 24.3 millimeters, and it possesses a reeded edge of 119 fine grooves, giving it both tactile security and aesthetic appeal. The year 1980 was a time of significant production at the U.S. Mint, with the Philadelphia facility alone striking more than $635 million to meet the demands of a busy national economy. Although the total mintage was high, the 1980 P quarter holds a distinct place in minting history because of the new presence of the P mint mark, a subtle but permanent evolution in coinage tradition. In the broader context of American life, this coin circulated during a period of inflation, rising prices, and political change, yet its design remained a constant symbol of national stability. The inscriptions "Liberty" and "In God We Trust" together embody the twin ideals of freedom and faith that have shaped the identity of the United States, while Washington's calm, resolute profile projects civic virtue and continuity. Because of its immense production, most 1980 P quarters were used in daily commerce, from vending machines and parking meters to gas stations and grocery stores, becoming an everyday companion of American citizens in the early 1980s. Over time, most of these coins have acquired surface where that dulls the original mint luster, softening the fine details in Washington's hair and the eagle's feathers, yet uncirculated examples, particularly those with sharp strikes and reflective surfaces, retain their crisp beauty and are sought after by collectors. In the world of coin collecting, the 1980 P quarter is often appreciated not for rarity, but for historical context. It stands at the junction between the traditional Washington design and the later modern issues, including the 50 state quarters program that began in 1999 and eventually replaced the long-standing eagle reverse. When examined closely under magnification, some 1980 P quarters reveal minor minting varieties or die errors, such as doubled lettering on Liberty or In God We Trust, small die cracks known as cuds, or slight off-center strikes, all of which add interest and value to particular specimens. Though ordinary circulated examples are worth only their face value of 25 cents, higher-grade mint state coins, especially those graded MS, 66 or higher by certification services such as PCGS or NGC, can command premiums ranging from a few dollars to over $100 depending on their perfection, luster, and lack of contact marks. The coin's physical presence tells a story of American production efficiency and craftsmanship, as millions were struck on high-speed presses using hardened